Your next witness.
Your Honor, we'd like to call Bruce Witkin, and it's by deposition designation.
All right, and who's first?
I think we are. I think we asked the questions first.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Your Honor.
That's right.
Will counsel please stipulate that in lieu of formally swearing in the witness, the reporter will instead ask the witness to acknowledge that their testimony will be true under the penalties of perjury, that counsel will not object to the admissibility of the transcript based on proceeding this way, and that the witness has verified that he is in fact Bruce Witkin.
Yes. Yes, I am.
Mr. Chu?
So agreed.
And could you please state your name and business address for the record, please?
Bruce Witkin, California, 91607.
And how did you meet Mr. Depp?
He joined a band that I was in Florida.
And did Depp ever become family?
To me? Yeah.
Who was the first person that Depp married?
My sister-in-law, Lori Ann Allison. Yes.
Okay. And was that around the time?
It's right when we moved out here, 1984.
Okay. So how long have you known Mr. Depp? How many years?
It's got to be over 40, maybe from 82 to now.
And would you consider yourself friends with Mr. Depp?
We were until about 4 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. And before 4 years ago, were you close friends?
Yeah, I would consider him my best friend. Yeah.
Was he like a brother to you before 4 years ago?
I mean, yeah, we were brothers. You would call me a brother, I'd call him a brother. Yeah. I mean, we had a lot in common.
Is it fair to say that he was like family before 4 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, he was friends with my mom. My mom loved him. I mean, yeah, we were as close as you can get.
And do you agree to tell the truth today, regardless of your close past friendship with Mr. Depp?
I tell the truth either way. Yes.
From about 2011 until 2016, how often do you think that how often do you estimate that you would have communicated with Mr. Depp?
A lot. We were working a lot of music together. We did a film together. Well, he did the film. I just helped record some stuff. A lot of time between that era. But him and I spent a lot of time from around 2001 till 2015. You know. Yeah.
Based on your personal observations from 2011 to 2016, did Mr. Depp ever abuse illicit drugs?
Yeah, I mean, I think that abuse is the wrong word, but, you know, I think that, yeah, it was going on. You know, it wasn't like crazy rock and roll house. No, it was just, yeah. But I wouldn't call it abuse.
What word would you use instead of abuse?
Getting high.
What? Oh.
Getting high.
Okay. Getting high on cocaine?
Yeah, once in a while, if I saw it, you know. I mean, handful of times I saw it. I don't think he liked to do it in front of me.
Did you ever observe forgetfulness in Mr. Depp after he'd been drinking or using substances?
Forgetfulness, no. I think that he's got a pretty good memory, but, you know, my personal experience with him, no.
Did Mr. Depp's drugs or alcohol ever impact the band when you were bandmates or its music performances?
We were all young. No, we were kids. We all did bad stuff then.
Are you aware of Mr. Depp achieving any period of sobriety during the years that you've known him?
Yeah.
And when was that?
It's hard for me to, I mean, it was right around, we'd have to look it up, when he did Lone Ranger. He seemed really kind of focused and wasn't drinking. I went to visit him. I believe it was New Mexico. Amber was there. Everything was like different. You know, he was proud of it. He wasn't drinking, and I think he was smoking a little weed, but that was it.
And do you remember about what year that was?
Feeling it's 2013, but I'd have to look to see when Lone Ranger was.
Is there a time that you believe that Mr. Depp needed help with substance abuse?
As a friend, yeah.
And do you know who Dr. Kipper is?
Oh, yeah.
And what do you know about Dr. Kipper in relation to Mr. Depp?
I don't have a strong opinion of Dr. Kipper, but I'll be as honest as I can. He was a doctor brought on, I believe, to help him get sober. He was a sober doctor. And I believe he had a nurse with Johnny and a nurse with Amber at the time. I thought it was a scam. I thought it was a complete ripoff. But that's just me.
Please bring up Exhibit 3. Okay, and does this look like a true and accurate copy of this exchange?
Yeah.
And regarding the lines, I'm real worried about him and this Dr. Kipper. What did you mean by that?
Like I said, I didn't trust this guy.
And were you ever worried about Mr. Depp's health?
Yeah, I mean, I would be, you know. I love the guy. You know? I didn't know what he was taking, but they just both seemed like zombies.
And why were you concerned?
Just because I saw how he looked and know what he's going through, and so yeah, I was concerned, but couldn't get back in there to try and help.
Were you nervous for him in relation to drugs and alcohol?
Yes.
So you did have some health concerns or not?
Well, yeah. I mean, like I said, we're not as young as we used to be, and you know, there was a part during that time that he was hitting it pretty hard. You could tell, and I just didn't want anything to happen to him.
And those concerns related to Mr. Depp's health
Yeah.
and they related to Mr. Depp's drug and alcohol use?
Yes.
Back to Kipper for a moment. Do you know if when Dr. Kipper prescribed drugs, you know, would Mr. Depp also take anything else besides that? For example, would Mr. Depp drink alcohol or use other drugs in addition to prescription drugs during 2011 to 2016?
The answer would be yes. It just seemed odd to me that there was weed and wine and a sober nurse. Didn't make sense to me.
And has Amber been nice to you since you've met her?
Amber was always very nice to me, yes.
And would you consider Mr. Depp to be a romantic person?
Yeah, I think so.
And why do you say that?
Just by the way I've seen him act, you know.
And have you noticed a certain intensity of Mr. Depp's relationships?
Yes.
And have you ever observed Mr. Depp exhibit any jealousy when he's been in a relationship?
Yes.
And do you remember when?
I go all the way back to my sister-in-law. I mean, you can definitely have a jealous streak in him.
Can you remember any specific examples?
You know, when he was younger, he was jealous of Nick Cage or jealous of Adam Ant because my sister-in-law knew them.
And besides that initial time period, did he ever tell you about any jealousy with any other women or any other times?
Yeah. You know, he brought up a few with Vanessa, which were ridiculous. A lot of it was in his head and not in reality. You know what I mean?
And what about with Amber? Did you ever encounter any talk from JD of jealousy with respect to Amber?
Yeah, there were a couple mentions if she was doing a movie with some guy or stuff like that.
In terms of jealousy, would anything make Mr. Depp more bothered or less bothered?
Like I said, it would, if she was on a film or doing something that he couldn't be around it to see what was going on, I think he'd work himself up, you know.
Can we please bring up Exhibit 6? And the very top line, if you can see that, Mr. Witkin,
Right?
your name is in the participants column, and him or Mr. Depp is in the from column.
Right.
It's dated February 4th, 2014. Did Mr. Depp ever tell you that he had a big fight with Amber at any time?
He would mention when shit was rough, yeah. You know, if they were having issues, yeah, he would mention it.
Do you have any personal knowledge of observing Mr. Depp and Mr. Manson together?
Yeah, but you can't blame somebody's drug abuse on somebody else. But yeah, him and Manson would hit it pretty hard as well.
And they would, if I hit it hard, they would do...
They would drink and smoke weed. I don't know if I ever saw Manson do blow, but I would assume that he did. He's done everything else.
Okay, but you would see them drink together?
Yeah, yeah. I worked with them both on a few things, so.
Let's go to Exhibit 8, please.
Yeah.
We can see that it's the same date. It's February 3rd, 2014. Text exchange between you and Amber. And do you have
I have a vague memory of him hanging at Manson's house for a couple of days.
do you know what kind of professional help more specifically?
I mean, yeah, to kind of clean up. I mean, he tried to clean up a couple times, and he did. And I think he needed that, and he needed therapy. You know, and I recommended that to him. He did it a little bit, but then he stopped. Because from my experience, it's deep-rooted issues that he's dealing with. It has nothing to do with Amber. That's my opinion.
Okay. So you were referring to two types of professional help there. One was therapy and one was cleaning up for drugs. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Could we please bring up Exhibit 9? So this is actually a continuation of that same date exchange from February 3rd, 2014. And I'll give you a minute to read it. They're text between you and Amber.
Right.
Do you think that you were going over there out of concern?
I mean, obviously, she was concerned, so I was concerned, and you know, going to Manson's would have been interesting because I don't know if he would have left. But I was trying to get there. I know it looks like I was trying to get through to Manson or find out where they were.
Okay. Can we pull up Exhibit 10, please? Do you remember this exchange as sort of part of a continuation of the last exchange?
Yeah, probably what I was doing is reaching out to the assistants to see where the fuck he was and how he was. Because obviously I didn't get any real answers.
Can I please bring up Exhibit 12? It's April 20th of 2016.
Okay.
How often were you around Mr. Depp at this time in April of 2016?
Probably a bit, depending on if we were rehearsing or recording. And my dates are a little squirrely, but
Did you have
probably a bit.
Do you have any memories of at this time of Mr. Depp getting high or drunk?
I mean, drinking while we were working, yeah. Smoking weed, yeah.
So I think your prior testimony was that you've not observed arguments between Mr. Depp and Amber. Is that correct, or is that wrong?
I've never seen them physically abuse each other, no.
And did you say this was at 3 a.m. when he called?
It was late. I can't exactly, but it was later than I imagined that I'd get a call. So I thought it was something bad. So yeah, it went down.
So Stephen called at around 3 a.m, and then you went down, and your understanding, you went down after that call?
Yeah.
And what was your understanding of the reason you were called?
Yeah, that it was just crazy arguing and stuff going on down there, and for some reason he thought I could help.
What was crazy about it?
Right. I mean, I think what was crazy to me is that's the first time that ever happened. The first time Stephen ever called me for help like that. Usually it's just to come and record or go do this or go do that, but for some reason he wanted me to come.
And when Steve had called you, did he make any references to anything being thrown around?
That I don't remember. It was almost like, shit's going crazy down here, can you come?
Did he say that he wanted you to come urgently?
Yes.
How long did it take you to get there?
My house downtown at 3 a.m, maybe 20 minutes.
Did you ever talk to Amber when you went over that morning?
Not really. It was just a lot of walking around and people going in and out of the bedroom, and I don't remember if people were crying. I don't remember any of that stuff. It was just like a blur to me. I don't remember if I talked to her. I'm sure I probably said everything's gonna be all right. But by the time I got there, you can tell there was a vibe in the house, but there's nothing I could witness.
What was the vibe in the house?
Yeah, just people, a little bit of an edge, And look, I got called down there at 3 a.m, and there's the mom up. I mean, it was obviously, to me, something went down, but I didn't see anything.
And if we could pull up Exhibit 13, please. And do you recognize the person in this picture?
Yep.
Who is it?
Amber Heard.
This picture is ALH, in case you can't see the base number, 7101. It's dated March 23rd, 2013. Mr. Witkin, you mentioned previously that you had seen bruises on Amber's upper arm.
Yeah, one time, yes.
One time. Does this look like the bruise you saw on Amber's upper arm? Mr. Witkin, what did the bruise that you saw on Amber look like?
I mean, it looked similar to that, but it didn't look like it looked like a grab, not a punch. Like just somebody grabbed her arm.
And do you remember what year or time frame that bruise that you saw was?
I'd have to go through the dates. We were working on a Keith Richards documentary, and Johnny and her showed up to the studio, and I just had noticed it on her arm.
And
I don't know if it's the same date or not.
did the bruise look like this bruise?
It's in the same vicinity. I don't know if that's the one.
Can you tell me more specifics about that bruise? What did it look like?
Like I said, it just looked like she was grabbed. That's all. That's what it seemed to be. Finger marks.
And did you ever talk to Amber about that bruise?
No.
And when did you see Mr. Depp with a fat lip?
Late. I'm thinking it's sometime in either 2015 or 16 during rehearsal.
Could have been can you be more precise of a month? Do you think it could have been in the spring of 2015?
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, we toured spring to summer, so yeah, maybe it's the spring of 15 or 16. I think it was 16. I think. But we did do other rehearsals for other spot gigs, so I could be off by a year.
Okay. if we could bring up Exhibit 15, please. If you look at the first text, Mr. Witkin, it's from Mr. Depp. It says, "I'm good, just got a fucked finger."
Right.
And the second text,
That's from Dudes. Yeah.
and do you remember what you would have been concerned about?
Just the fact that somehow his finger got cut off and he's got doctors around him that are supposed to be making him sober and everything's supposed to be better, and it wasn't.
Did Mr. Depp ever talk to you about that, about sobering up?
A little bit. He just said, you know, AA wasn't his cup of tea. Didn't believe in a higher power.
He didn't believe sobering up was his cup of tea?
No, he just didn't believe in a higher power. If he was going to do it, he'd do it his own way.
Do you remember any specific incidents of anger with Amber?
I mean, he would talk about frustrations or whatever, and we would try and talk through it, but it wasn't as much anger as it was like confusion and sadness and why is this not working, you know. But no, he would never, very rarely would it be a specific reason why.
And did you notice any increase or decrease in Mr. Depp's anger when he was drinking or on drugs?
I didn't notice much of a difference, you know.
Did you ever see Mr. Depp doing drugs with other bandmates?
Yes,
Did you ever see Mr. Depp doing drugs with Joe Perry?
yes,
And what types of drugs did you see them do?
they were doing cocaine.
And how do you know they were doing cocaine?
Because I was in the room.
And around what time was that?
It was pretty late.
What year?
It had to be 2016 because that's when we were on the road.
Had you ever seen Mr. Depp do cocaine before 2016?
Yes.
And when was that?
Probably 2014 was the first time I saw him do it because I was quite surprised because when we were kids, he hated this stuff. But then after that, when I kind of said, "Why are you doing this?" he kind of hid it from me for a long time until, I believe, in 2016.
And do you have any recollection of steps Mr. Depp took in December 2015 to try to assist in decreasing spending?
I don't know all the details about it. There was obviously another lawsuit with that whole thing. But I do know leading up to that time, he needed to slow down on spending. I heard about that.
Did Mr. Depp tell you about that?
Yeah.
What'd he say?
Time. Just something about the business manager and, you know, been spending too much and I need to slow down or do more movies or whatever.
Have you been involved in Mr. Depp's any of Mr. Depp's prior lawsuits?
Yes, I have. I was part of the first one against the management group, and then I was deposed in the lawsuit with his lawyer, Jake Bloom.
Did you testify? Do you remember testifying about drug and alcohol use in that by Mr. Depp in that deposition?
Yes.
And what was that about?
I was at Johnny's house. Things were going good. We were hanging out, talking. And I guess Waldman came in and Johnny introduced me. And I just remember Waldman saying, "Hey, nice to meet you." And Johnny had told Waldman that I was part of Unison Music, which was named in the lawsuit. And if they needed any paperwork from me, that I had all my paperwork and tax returns. And Waldman turned right at me, looked me in the eye, and just said, "You got any shit on the Mandels?" And I said, "No." And that was it. That's the last time I saw him.
And you also testified in the Bloom case. Is that right?
Yeah,
Did you testify to Mr. Depp's drug and alcohol use in that testimony?
I believe I did.
How did Mr. Depp respond to your testimony?
Not happy.
Not happy. And what's your relationship with Mr. Depp now? What happened in the last 4 years?
Honestly, I don't know. Somehow I started to feel a distance. End of 2017, we had a gig, and I saw him, but he was really kind of distant and kind of fucked up. And it's like he wrote me this weird text saying I stabbed him in the back and bad-mouthed him. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he wouldn't explain it. And pretty much I haven't seen him since 2018. Didn't even get to have the whole bro argument. Just cut off. Can't get through to him. No return text. No nothing. No email. My daughter even got married and he ignored it. So I think there's some people behind the scenes talking shit about me because everybody always tried to position themselves. Oh, who's the best friend and who's this, that. And when I was just there to be his friend. And I think there were some lies and bullshit said about me that he actually believed, which is surprising. And I've yet to have the conversation with him to go, what are you talking about? I know that he wasn't happy about my testimony, but I wasn't going to lie.
And did you ever try and help Mr. Depp?
Oh, yeah, I tried.
Did you ever try and help him with substance abuse?
I mean, I got him with a therapist, but never tried an intervention or nothing like that. No. Or we would just talk about it. And he would say, oh, you know, I'll be all right. I'll be all right. And I said, well, you're not all right. And shit would just move on to the next conversation.
Did you observe anyone else trying to help Mr. Depp with substance abuse?
I mean, I know Christy, his sister, was always concerned with his well-being, whether it was substance abuse or not. And everybody, I think, deep down inside was, but like I said, the people on payroll won't really say much. They'll try, but what, you know, they don't want to lose their job. And I'm not saying they all fall into that category, you know, but it's a strange thing around people like him. Everybody wants something.
And I think today you testified to seeing a bruise, but is it fair to say that you have no knowledge one way or another of violence?
Not personal knowledge, no.
You mentioned before that Mr. Depp has pushed you away in the last 4 years. Is that right?
Yes.
Has Mr. Depp ever admitted being violent to you?
No.
With anyone?
No.
All right.